A boatman steers alone down the Colorado, the wide river that cuts across North America. He pilots a wooden hull, sail raised on the mast. The scene, shot in 1871, frames the Black Canyon, a narrow corridor where the water bends the rock. There, sheer walls rise out of the Arizona desert and guide the route like ancient walls. Silence follows every move. In the picture are Paiute people, inhabitants of the Great Basin, the arid region between the Rocky Mountains and the Sierra Nevada. The shot is from 1872 near Cedar in Utah. The Paiute belong to the western branch of the Numic languages, also present among the Mono and Kauai peoples. The scene hints at a slice of desert life, where language weaves bonds. In Green River, Wyoming, two rock formations dominate the view. Known as the Twin Buttes, they made history when William Henry Jackson photographed them in 1872 during his geological expedition. Since then, they've guided eyes and routes, a sure point on the map for locals and travelers crossing the area. On the desert horizon, they mark memory and point the way. In 1867, Clarence King brought together scientists and technicians to map the West. The mission, known as the Geological Exploration of the 40th Parallel, grew out of a government plan, follow the path of the future Union Pacific, and step by step reveal the resources underground. It was science in the service of railroad expansion and a country on the move. In 1867, Timothy H. O'Sullivan captured a striking view at Pyramid Lake in Nevada. The salty lake is a remnant of ancient Lake Lahontan, which once covered much of the west of the state. There, tufa formations emerge, limestone shaped by mineral deposits from hot springs and high pH waters, visible clues to a deep geological past. In 1873, a photograph records Canyon de Chelly in Arizona and shows a camp called Camp Beauty. Among canvas tents and what looks like a cabin, the group shelters at the bottom of the valley. Around them, rock formations rise like towers, composing the backdrop that frames the makeshift life of that moment. The image suggests a pause, travel, and observation. The Zuni lived in western New Mexico. In the 17th century, the Spanish built a church there to convert them. Known as the Old Mission, it was abandoned after the rebellion that drove the invaders out. The 1873 photo shows its ruins, surrounded by stone houses on the central plaza of Hawiku, where the village went on with daily life. It's a scene from the settling of the American West. The crew of the boat, Picture, pauses the journey of the expedition led by Lieutenant George Wheeler. The mission was to map and study the Colorado River and its tributaries. Among them is Timothy O'Sullivan, the photographer who documented the landscapes and people they met along the way, and images that helped tell that crossing. In 1872, a group of explorers reached Browns Park, a mountainous, isolated enclave in Colorado. Faced with rivers, lakes, and woods, they saw a refuge and an open-air lab. They decided to stay a few more days. They would rest from the road and record plants and animals, mapping along trails and riverbanks what the landscape revealed little by little. Shoshone Falls, on the Snake River in southern Idaho, impresses with its scale, a 65-meter drop, 14 higher than Niagara Falls, and almost 300 meters wide. The present landscape was born about 14,000 years ago, when glacial Lake Bonneville overflowed, swept the valley, and carved the canyon the Snake still runs through today. It's a striking lookout in the American West. In 1871, an explorer sat on a rock on the bank of the Colorado River. He watched the current and the walls rising around him. He was in Iceberg Canyon, a wild stretch between Arizona and Nevada. There, as part of a team of scientists, he moved through land not yet mapped, recording what he saw and trying to understand that gorge. In the old image, a wagon carries Timothy O'Sullivan's dark room, a name tied to records of the Civil War and the Old West. 4 mules pulled the vehicle as they crossed the dry ground of Carson Sink, a closed basin in the Carson Desert, Nevada. There, road, dust, and craft come together to create photographs that outlived their time. After the silver strikes of the Comstock Lode, the mining community of Gold Hill sprang up next to Virginia City. Smaller but lively, it reached about 8,000 residents between 1868 and 1888. At its peak, mines like Yellow Jacket, Crown Point, and Belcher each paid out more than $10 million in dividends, cementing its brief prosperity. At the Illinois mine in Nevada, gold extraction used a clever wooden incline built in 1871 in the Pahranagat area. 2 rails ran up to the top, where a pulley controlled the motion. That way, the loaded car would go up while another came down, a continuous back and forth that sped up the work and kept the ore flowing. In 1867, the photographer O'Sullivan reached Virginia City, Nevada, determined to document the Savage and Gould and Curry mines tied to the Comstock lode, a silver powerhouse. To capture the miner's routine, he went down about 300 meters underground, facing nearly dark tunnels to record the hidden work at the bottom of the mine. From high above Canyon de Chelly, the 1873 photo reveals a sacred land lived in by native peoples for generations. The red-stained rock walls snake in curves and cracks that run for miles. In the distance, the green along the creek cuts the canyon floor, creating a contrast that leads the eye through the landscape. In 1872, north of the Colorado Plateau, the course of a river that runs through the American Southwest opened a way through rocks and canyons. Toward evening, the cliffs rose like guardians of the valley. With every step, the light shifted, revealing cracks, curves, and plateaus, and inviting the eye to move on, where the landscape stitched together water, stone, and time. In 1875, the sun crossed the Great Basin as the Paiute community gathered for an outdoor portrait. Under the generous canopy of a tree, maybe at Cottonwood Springs, Nevada, in Washoe County, they lined up in 3 rows. Final adjustments, a call from the photographer, and faces opened into smiles that crossed time. In 1872, Utah was the stage for a rare meeting of the landscape. After millions of years of wind and water at work, 2 big canyons pushed forward until they touched. The Green and the Yampa, carried by the flow of the Green River, met at the point where the bed split, joining paths and reshaping the scenery of the American West, a show of nature. Almost a century and a half ago, the photographer O'Sullivan stumbled on an unexpected trace, the mark of someone who had been there 150 years earlier. On the sandstone of Inscription Rock in New Mexico, a Spanish inscription dated 1726 records the passage of Ensign Don Joseph de Paiva Vasconcelos on February 18th, a clue that links 2 travelers across time. Calling themselves the People, the Navajo were an indigenous nation of North America. Their history runs through deserts. They spoke a language of the Athabascan family and belonged to the culture of the Southwest. They migrated from the north and settled on a broad plateau that spans Arizona, New Mexico, and Utah, the largest native reservation in the United States. In 1873, the White House ruins appear in Canyon de Chelly, Arizona, the former home of the Pueblo, Anasazi, who built cliff dwellings more than 5 centuries earlier. In the background, groups of men spread out across the nook and the valley, posing on structures and rubble, while ropes connect them and trace a route between heights and ground on a safe path. In 1867, an expedition went down the Truckee River that runs through Nevada. Leading the way, the boat Nettie took the team through rapids and winding stretches. The mission was to map the waterway, test its navigability, and identify routes in the western part of the state, opening the way for future commercial links. The data collected would guide decision makers. Seen from this hill, Santa Fe seemed to tell its 17th century origins under Spanish colonization. In 1873, already the capital of New Mexico, it kept its colonial feel. Narrow streets, adobe houses, stone temples. Between memory and change, the city moved forward without losing the marks that shaped it, without giving up what made it. In 1871, Maimon, a Mojave man, became a guide and translator for explorers who spent months crossing the Colorado country. With John Wesley Powell's team, he joined a scientific expedition that mapped rivers, trails, and local memories, bringing knowledge together and recording voices that might have been lost without his mediation. Alta City sprang up in the 19th century when silver miners from the Emma, Flagstaff, and neighboring mines settled in Little Cottonwood Valley. The Emma got famous for its ore grade and in 1871 was sold for a large sum to British investors. Soon the illusion collapsed. It was a fraud. The episode strained relations between the U.S. and Great Britain and ended in a congressional investigation. In 1871, Timothy O'Sullivan photographed in Arizona the rock formation known as Cathedral Mesa. In the scene, dry ground stretches as far as the eye can see, while the Colorado River draws a winding path in the distance. Under the sun, the mesa shows red tones and firm edges, creating a dialogue between mineral hardness and water in motion.